Welcome to Questions from a Noob with SuperBeard, Vince Hoover, and Denise Jackson.
Welcome, everybody, to a nice little offshoot of the Two Geeks and a Noob podcast called Questions with a Noob. Denise Jackson is our resident noob with the comic book movie world, and she's got a lot of questions. She's watched a lot of the movies and is very interested in things, but maybe doesn't have the same back history as, say, somebody like me. So with segments like this, she'll ask the questions that hopefully you have too. Hopefully I can answer them, and if not, we can at least discuss through them and figure them out together.
Right. So I've been watching a lot of the movies over again. Since our last podcast discussing Loki, I've been watching the first Iron Man, the second Iron Man. I watched Ant-Man and Wasp, the Endgame again. And there's just so many things that have popped up where I'm just like, what? Why is it like this? And but you guys also discussed like different phases last time in our podcast. You're talking about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. And Marvel is really good about setting that up in the Disney Plus app. They did a really good job of helping people catch up with the timeline and just putting the movies in line together. So that's really, really helpful. But there's still like so many questions, such as, which I talked to you about earlier, where we were talking about that city in
the quantum city name.
Because that's something you would miss that. Like for me, I've watched that movie at least 3 times, and it wasn't until this time that it just was like a blinky light and it captured my attention. Like, what is that? What is that about? So can you tell me more about that?
Absolutely. I actually wrote an article on this, as a matter of fact, back when the movie first came out over on screengeek.net. That's screengeek.net. Go check it out. Selfless plug.
But you're going to put the link in
yes,
here, right?
The link will be there. You can always go down and check it out. So the quantum city that's seen as Hank Pym is traveling through the quantum realm to find Janet. It's one of those Easter eggs. See, Marvel's really good about, they put Easter eggs in that are sometimes just for the hardcore fans, but then they also pay dividends years and years later. This is going to be one of those ones that pays years and years later. We're going to see quite a bit about this quantum city, most likely during Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the third Ant-Man film, because that's where King the Conqueror is most likely. This is how he hides away from the TVA. This is how he hides away from time being an issue. He can sit outside of time in the quantum realm.
What name did you just say?
King the Conqueror. We brought him up. We brought him up during the podcast, and he's probably going to be the big bag of the next set of movies. Like, he'll be like the next Thanos.
Where does he come from? Because that's the first, like, they've never brought it up to my knowledge in any of the movies. So where does he come from? What is that?
So he started as a Fantastic Four villain in the comics.
Okay.
And he's always meddled with time. It's a way for him to be immortal. It's also a way for him to have power. Like, it's almost like, think Back to the Future when Marty McFly got that almanac of all the different sports. He was planning on going back and betting on sports. Biff got a hold of it, changed everything. That's kind of what King does, but on a exponential scale. He's not betting on sports to make money. He is setting himself up through time to have all the power.
Huh. Okay. So where is he on the timeline of all of these movies, and where would he fit in then?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question that we can't fully answer just yet. Because in the comics, it's one way. In the movies, it's going to be a very different way, because they're not strictly following the comics. My best theory, based on all that I've seen and my knowledge of the films, is that he's in that city, in the quantum city, and he's the ruler of that city, but he's stuck. And that the events of Quantumania, with Ant-Man and the Wasp exploring the quantum realm further, will get him out. And they're basically going to be, it's going to be like Pandora's box. They're going to release this evil that's going to end up being a huger problem. And that especially works because if you think about it, Scott Lang was the key to Endgame.
Right.
He was the reason the time heist even happened and why it worked, because he got out, he was able to escape the quantum realm. So he was the genie in a bottle that saved the day. Now he's going to be the one that opens Pandora's box.
Okay.
So there's a juxtaposition to his character that way.
Okay. Yeah. So would he kind of be like a Doctor Strange when he was talking to Dormammu, if I'm saying that correctly, where he's like, I can control this realm, and you're like this super being or whatever, but I control you and you're now my prisoner? Would that be like kind of the same thing?
I wouldn't say that. I think that in Ant-Man's case, it's going to be a complete accident letting him free.
No, like the other guy, not Ant.
Kang?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's on a Dormammu level, because Dormammu is a dimensional being on par with like the Celestials, like the gods of the Marvel Universe. Dormammu,
I'm really looking forward to learning more about that. I think like that's gonna put it all together for me is when that comes out.
Yeah, well, that's what the Eternals are gonna
Oh yeah,
answer a lot of they're gonna answer a lot of questions about that this November, which somebody still has to watch the trailer.
Okay.
Somebody has homework. But in all fairness, in the first trailer, the Celestials aren't shown, but they are a key point to the Eternals film because they create the Eternals. They actually technically create humanity. They create what are called the Deviants, which are like the evil version of the Eternals. It's like a poorly mutated gene when they're trying to create the... So it's like doing an experiment, and the first batch doesn't come out great. So that's the Deviants. They're like, crap, these are bad. But we're not going to kill them. We'll just let them be. And then, we got it right with the Eternals. These immortal, superpowered beings. So that's part of what it is. And Thanos is an Eternal with the Deviant gene. So like he was born from two eternal parents, but he has an eternal deviant or a deviant gene in him, which is why he's purple instead of being like, when you see the Eternals, they just look like beautiful, perfect humans.
Wow. Well, then that's really interesting because then my next question would be like, in that regard, Loki, is like Bifrost. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but like he doesn't turn blue until he touches the cube.
Yes, okay. So Loki is a frost giant.
Right.
And the Bifrost, by the way, is the rainbow bridge that they use to teleport between realms.
Right.
That's what Bifrost is.
Right.
He's a frost giant, son of Laufey, the king of the frost giants. But he only turns blue when he touches either the...
Tesseract.
No, not the Tesseract. When he turns blue, it's the frost giant's... what is it called? Crap, now I can't think. It's the frost giant's...
You're a noob now.
It's the frost giant's... Shush! It's the frost giant's weapon that Odin keeps as a trophy.
Oh. Okay.
And he also turns blue when he's touched by a frost giant during the battle of Thor 1. So if you watch Thor 1, when Thor goes against his father's orders and goes to the frost giant's world. During the battle, Loki gets grabbed by one.
Yes.
Volstagg yells, he got grabbed by one and his arm got frozen and he got injured.
Right.
He's like, don't let them touch you.
Yes.
Loki immediately gets grabbed, but instead of freezing, his skin turns blue.
I remember that was really, really a cool scene.
So this is something that may be addressed in the Loki series, is there's no explanation given as to how he looks like an Asgardian. You see in the movie when Odin picks him up, he goes from blue. The baby goes from blue to normal skin to the skin color of the Asgardians.
What happened with that? I hope they explain that.
I hope they do too, because if you remember, also in the scene where he yells at his father. There's a whole thing about it where he's like, "Why did you take me? Am I just another trophy?" That whole thing.
Right.
He grabs that thing, the tomb of the ice frost giants, and turns blue. But as soon as he lets it go, he turns back.
Yep.
But magic doesn't work in the TVA. So if it's
Right.
a magical spell that keeps him that way, how is it still working? Why is he not blue in a TVA? And I've actually seen this question on TikTok quite a bit. And quite frankly, there's not an answer just yet. But then again, we're only one episode in. That it may not be
I
a
have a
spell.
theory, though.
What?
I have a theory.
I want to hear it. Theories are great.
Love trumps all. So love was there for him, and maybe that's what made him take the form of who loved him most.
Ah, the Harry Potter theory.
Sure.
That love beat Voldemort. Love was what stopped Voldemort from killing Harry Potter. But I actually believe the same thing. I believe that it's Odin's love and also, I mean, Odin's the All-Father.
Right.
His power transcends even a lot of things, even normal things. So, and it also, there could be something that's not explained. There could also be that when a frost giant is taken off planet at a young age, he could possibly not revert to the frost giant look. Or there's a key sentence in what Odin says, that he was incredibly small for the baby of a frost giant.
Oh.
So is Loki's mother not a frost giant?
Oh, that would be really interesting to know.
Yeah, so that's maybe his mother was an Asgardian or from another one of the 9 realms, but not a frost giant. So when he's not on the frost planet being engulfed in that magic, he reverts to what his mother was.
Are you just being vague, or do you know something from way ago comic books?
I'm being vague because
you suck.
I'm being vague.
I know you too well.
Look, I'm not being vague in the sense that I know something from the comic books. It's the sense that this is a theory on my end, because in the comic books, he is Asgardian. Well, you have to go to Norse mythology, because even in Norse mythology, he is the son of a frost giant adopted by Odin, but they never explain his looks, why he looks like an Asgardian, why he doesn't look like a frost giant, that kind of thing. And so the comic books don't really cover that either, honestly. It's only something that's coming up because now it's on a much more visual and mainstream spectrum.
Well, that's neat. I like that it's under magnifying glass like that. And so what about Thanos? Does it explain why he turns purple? And would that transcend into Loki? Would it be the same kind of thing?
No. So the reason that Thanos is purple and doesn't look like the other Eternals is because he has that deviant gene. That is actually Marvel Cinematic Universe canon. If you go, there's a place in Las Vegas, and in one of the casinos, they have a giant Avengers exhibit.
Cool.
In that exhibit, there's a section for Thanos, and in his biography, it talks about he is an Eternal, but born with a deviant gene, thus the reason he looks the way he does. So that's part of their explanation. And there have been rumors, and there's even concept art, that a young Thanos will be in Eternals.
Huh.
So you'll see Thanos at around teenage age, which these beings live. I mean, this movie spans between 7,000 and 10,000 years. And that's only a part of their life. They are truly immortal. And
That's really neat.
They can only be killed by actually murdering them. They don't die of old age, they don't get sick. So
Right.
You have to legit, with Thanos, they had to freaking cut his head off. So the
I
reason,
feel like Marvel could do a lot with that, though, because even though, do you remember when we were in school and we learned about recessive and dominant genes? There's a lot of gray area there, because even though somebody's born to dominant gene parents, the recessive gene can still pop up and just be you're not adopted.
You'll see it all the time. You'll see olive skin, black-haired parents with brown eyes. Both parents.
Yeah.
Same race, they're the same race. They They both, and then the child comes out fair skinned, freckled, and redhead with blue
Right,
eyes or something
right.
like, and it
It just
happens.
happens.
It's just
Yeah.
it's almost like a genetic lottery. And that
So like they have a lot to go from. Like Marvel can just be like, oh, we're just kidding. This explains this. So
well, I think that like the explanation of him having the deviant gene it's a good one to keep, because in the comics, like Thanos' mother, the second he was born, she wanted to murder him.
oh,
Because the hatred between deviants and Eternals runs deep. And what's interesting is that Angelina Jolie's character in Eternals is actually having a secret affair with a deviant. They have a relationship, they love each other, but they have to keep it secret, Romeo and Juliet style, because the two houses fight, the two families fight. So they have to have this Romeo and Juliet style romance in secret, because deviants and Eternals aren't supposed to love each other, they're supposed to hate each other to the point of murder. So that's something that could come into play in a future Eternal movie. I don't know if it'll come into play in this movie, but just the cast alone on Eternals sets up so much, because you have Angelina Jolie, Selma Hayek, Richard Madden, Kit Harington playing Black Knight, which is huge, Camille Nanjiani. I mean, just so many big time, and then you have an actual deaf actress playing the deaf character, so inclusion is huge. We have a gay superhero. One of the Eternals will be gay. That's huge. So there's a lot coming. There's a lot to build the future of the MCU on this movie in particular. And a lot of people are kind of sleeping on it until that trailer came out. They were like, "Oh, but it's like Guardians of the Galaxy. Nobody knew who they were. They were so obscure, and yet by making a great film, they're now some of the most beloved characters in all of cinema. You're going to get that same thing with the Eternals. The film, the cinematography alone is just breathtakingly beautiful, and you can see that just from the trailer. Marvel's always on par with their writers are just spot on. So I have all the faith in the world that this film will be good, and it's going to introduce a whole new team, and they're going to be amazing. And then it's just going to open up the door to so much more, because like I said, this spans 7,000 to 10,000 years of history. It also is going to explain. There's a kind of joke at the end of the trailer, and I don't want to spoil it because you haven't watched it yet, but they're going to have to explain why they didn't intervene in Endgame. Why didn't they stop Thanos? Why didn't they come to help? Where were they during all this time?
Are you talking about the Timekeepers?
No, the Eternals. The Timekeepers. The Eternals. The Timekeepers didn't intervene because it was supposed to happen according to them. According to their sacred timeline, Thanos was supposed to come. He was supposed to snap. The Avengers were supposed to do the time heist and bring it all back. That was all. That was their plan, so they didn't have to intervene. The Eternals are superpowered beings on par with Thanos. They're of the same race. They should have been able to intervene. Why didn't they? But even in the very beginning of the trailer, it's like we've been there with at humanity's side, helping but never intervening. There's a Selma Hayek voiceover, and it literally says, we've never allowed ourselves to intervene. But now it's one of those things that, look at what we just sat, like, my theory is that they're going to be like, we just sat back and watched Thanos wipe out half the universe. It's time we step up and be heroes. Like, that's what it feels like. And you'll get that from the joke, too, at the end of the trailer. You're like, okay, maybe it's time we step up. It's 10,000 years that we've been waiting around and just sitting back and just kind of very occasionally helping out and this and that. Like, and now it's like, okay, we've not done enough. We need to do more. So that's my theory, anyways.
Well, another thing that I've been thinking about, and that's an interesting theory, but talking about like time shifts, Gamora just like takes off, and so she's not dead. That would be interesting to see how that plays out.
So I don't know if they're going to touch on that in Thor: Love and Thunder, because the Guardians have a big role in that film. But by all accounts, if they don't address it in Loki, like, she's a variant.
Wow.
She came from an alternate 2014, because the second that Nebula fell down and it projected the other Nebula's memories.
Right.
That was a Nexus event. That was a split in time.
Yeah.
So that immediately made that Gamora a variant. Now, every other variant from that timeline got wiped out by Iron Man snapping his fingers. But Gamora survived. There's a deleted scene in Endgame where she runs away.
Right. So how is
So-
that not like a timekeeper stepping in kind of thing?
So this is the only... I don't want to use the term plot hole because I don't think it's a plot hole. I think it is just something they haven't answered yet. But technically, when she turned that corner to hide behind that rock,
Yeah,
shouldn't there have been a TVA agent standing right there going, yeah, you come with us?
I would think so.
You would think so.
Because
So
Loki did that.
exactly. The second he came out of Mongolia, he stood up and he's like, I am burdened with glorious purpose. And boom, TVA agents. So did that happen to Gamora? We don't know yet. Will the series address it? Maybe, maybe not. Will they address it in Thor Love and Thunder? Probably not. But Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is going to start filming soon. They definitely will have to address it then because if you remember at Endgame, Chris Pratt, Star-Lord, he was looking for Gamora. He was trying to figure out where she went to.
Right.
So that is definitely a question that has to be answered, but she is technically a variant.
Huh.
So technically, she could have went around that corner and they just would have went, boomstick,
Go get your ticket or we're going to disintegrate you.
which somebody brought up a great point on TikTok. Why all the bureaucracy? If you know they're going to be guilty of being a variant, you just reset the timeline. You dropped a little reset egg.
Right.
So they can't go back.
Right.
Is there a prison where these people sit in that are found innocent but not allowed to go back?
And then what's the point?
So
why?
So you make them sign off on every little thing they've said. You strip them of their clothes. You put them in a jumpsuit. You make them take a ticket. They go in front of a judge. No matter what they say, they're guilty, and then they get wiped out. Why?
Right.
What is this weird bureaucratic power trip the TVA are doing?
I don't know, because they should already have all the answers then at that point. What's the point?
There you go. So, as somebody not as well versed in the comic books, you're looking at it as like, well, they should have all the answers.
Right.
Maybe they don't, because maybe, just maybe, they're not as benevolent and in control as they like to say they are.
Well, obviously, considering the first episode of Loki, when he was able to grab everything and send that own chick through like a loop.
Yep.
That was hilarious.
What if the sacred timeline, as it so says in their little propaganda animation, isn't sacred? It's just the one they want.
Right.
So it's all just it's a power trip.
Yeah.
It's 3 kids with a toy.
Very well could be. We'll see. Hopefully they give us more answers than that. We have a lot to look forward to.
Well, I can tell you.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. But I can tell you this. There apparently is a lot in episode 2 because, like my friend Theories by T and a couple other people who have seen the second episode, they have not at all said one theory. They've not said yay or nay to anybody else's theories. They haven't commented on a theory. They haven't given their own theories because apparently episode 2 explains a lot. So they're like, if I say anything, it's a spoiler. He's like, so I'm just going to sit back and not say nothing.
Wow.
So, I'm really looking forward to tonight because I don't sleep. I will be watching it the second it premieres. And then I've got the Geek Show after party. I keep saying after party. I go to one after party for the Impractical Jokers movie, and that's just all I can always say when I think after party. The after show, and I'll be on that, handling chat and that. But tomorrow, when we record the podcast, we're going to dive deep into episode 2. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. I know we want to touch on other things like the Eternals trailer, and someday somebody will watch WandaVision all the way through. But not naming any names or anything. But, yeah, what Marvel has done is absolutely incredible. And it's great to see, because basically, think Falcon and the Winter Soldier was 6 hours worth of footage. It was the 6 episodes, basically an hour long each. That's basically 3 movies. That's basically a trilogy.
Yeah.
But in one long form story. And the same thing will happen with Loki. So you're going to get what is basically a trilogy in one story, and that's really cool. And that's what the freedom that Disney Plus gives them is insane. So I'm so excited about that.
I can tell you every time an episode ends with the Marvel series, it just, no, this can't be over right now.
Yeah. I will tell you on WandaVision, there are no after credit scenes until you get to, I think, episode 7. Then there's after credit scenes. Episode 7, 8, and 9, there's after credit scenes. I do believe the same will happen with Loki, that there won't be an after credit scene till maybe episode 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
So I don't remember. I don't think Falcon and the Winter Soldier had one at all, or did it?
I don't know. Don't quote me. I don't really remember.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I can't.
Yeah.
Remember if Falcon and the Winter Soldier had one or not.
I don't know. But you know what? I just had a really kind of crazy thought. How interesting would it be for Marvel to have like a reality series where it's like all you have to do is just watch all the Marvel movies and all the series and do nothing else? Like, how many people can just sit there? I don't think that would be that hard.
No, I've done it. I've done it. I've done it in chronological order, which Disney Plus offers you, and I've done it in phase order, which Disney Plus also offers you. There is actually.
I know they offer it to you for like no cell phone. Like you can win like $1 million for like no cell phone. I'm like, sign me up. I can totally be without my cell phone.
There was a movie. I think it was a movie theater chain that did it, where you went to the movie theater, and obviously no phones allowed in the movie theater, and you watched from Iron Man 1 all the way through to Endgame.
Oh wow!
And if you did, like, you won. I think it was like 15 grand or something like that.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
Yeah, and there was another one. There was another one.
Like where you couldn't pee?
I think you were allowed bathroom breaks.
Okay.
I think, but your only intermission was each movie. I think you had like 5 or 10 minutes between each movie to get snacks and to go to the bathroom.
That's nothing.
But that's yeah. But you also, I think the key was you weren't allowed to sleep. Like you weren't allowed to fall asleep. I think that was
okay.
You would lose.
I would totally lose. Especially if it's something that I've seen like so many times. But you know what? Not now, because now I'm like really trying to dissect and look at them. Yeah.
And that's what I think is great, because like, so here's a great example of how Marvel works. So they didn't know what they were going to be able to do when it came to the first Iron Man movie. They didn't know. They had a plan, but really they're like, if this movie isn't successful, then we're just done.
Right.
If it is successful, but it's only like moderately successful, maybe we'll try to push a interwoven story, but we'll give it time. Obviously, it was a huge success.
Right.
But do you remember in Iron Man 2 when he had to build that machine to create a new element?
Yes. Oh my God.
And Phil Coulson goes, "Why do you have this?" And it was the prototype for Captain America's shield. And he goes, "Oh, that's perfect. Put it here."
It's a level.
Yeah. That was just an Easter egg put in by the prop guy to see if Jon Favreau caught it.
Wow.
Jon Favreau loved it so much they left it in the movie for fans. Kevin Feige, in turn, loved it so much it spelled out further things like Phil Coulson's love for Captain America, Howard Stark being the one that created the shield. And so even when an Easter egg is not meant to be something at first, they're so smart in their storytelling that they're like, well, wait a minute, remember we did this?
Yeah.
Here we are 10 years later, but we can tie that back in. And
oh my God, that's just such good writing.
Another great example, Iron Man 3. No.
Okay.
Same movie, Iron Man 2. That's with Whiplash.
Okay.
That's Whiplash.
Oh, yeah.
So when he's attacking the Stark Expo.
Right.
And the robot comes out, and there's that little kid in the Iron Man mask, and he puts his fake blaster up to stop the robot.
Yes, yeah.
That is Peter Parker, who is now Spider-Man.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Again, originally when it was done, it was just a kid that Iron Man saves. But the reason, so now you have a reason. This is the reason why Peter Parker is so enamored by Spider-Man. By Iron Man. Iron Man saved his life.
Oh my God, I love that.
And then went on to be his mentor, which is why it hit him so hard when Tony died.
Yeah, but do they show that he is that kid in any of the movies?
The shirt. If you go look at if you look at the shirt the kid is wearing, it's a science shirt.
Yeah.
Peter still he has an adult version of that, or a grown-up version of that shirt on in Spider-Man in Spider-Man Homecoming. It's the same
I
shirt.
mean, I get it, but why don't they make that more known? Like for, like newbie fans like me, where that would just be like a heartwarming thing.
Well, it's one of those. It was like I said, it was one of those things that when it was obviously shot, it wasn't the plan because they didn't have the rights to Spider-Man. They didn't know they'd work a deal out with Sony, so it was just a kid. But then it worked out. They're like, well, wait a minute. We'll just and the way they did it is by putting Peter in the same shirt.
That's cool. But they should make that more known now because that's really cute. I like that.
Well, I don't know how else you do it without making it, because the only way I can think to do it, it's cheesy. It's like, man, Tony Stark saved my life back at the Stark Expo, and I've never forgotten. Like, it's just a weird piece of dialogue.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
they have great writers. They can figure it out for noobs like me that wants to know that and see that. I mean, you already see the love that Iron Man has for Spider-Man and the kid, as he lovingly called him. So it would be cool to see like how it was also the other way too, and for such more of a deeper reason. Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully they do something like that.
Well, can we talk about how much of a hypocrite Tony Stark is?
That goes without saying.
But here, look at it like
for
this.
A lot of reasons.
So he signs the Sokovia Accords out of his own guilt because that woman makes him feel bad. Which, by the way, she's planted. She's there on purpose.
Right.
They don't say who plants him, but I think that's going to be addressed later on because General Ross is going to end up being kind of a bad guy later on, even though he's already kind of a bad guy. He's just a dick. But I have a feeling he's going to be a bad guy later on. There's comic book reasons for that. But so she's planted there to make him feel guilty, which is why he signs the Accords. He then locks Wanda. That's hard to say.
Do it again.
He locks Wanda in the Avengers compound because she's a kid and she's dangerous. But then he goes and recruits a 16-year-old to be on his team and fight in an airport. Like, for real? At least at this point, Wanda's technically an adult, which WandaVision retcons her age. It's a problem I have. I'm not happy about it. She was a teenager in Age of Ultron, but then in WandaVision, they say she was born in 1989, making her almost 30 years old. It's stupid. That is one thing in WandaVision I did not like. But
she's a teenager in Age of Ultron?
Yeah, she's only like 16 years old in Age of Ultron.
What about an Endgame then?
By that point, she would have only been like 21, 22.
Okay, well, she's in a really close relationship, a for real relationship with.
Yeah, but I mean, she's 21, 22. I mean,
wow, I thought she was a lot older than that. I had no idea.
But in WandaVision, they retcon her age to being born in 89, and that made her 10. 20,
it's okay, don't hurt yourself.
I did. Math. It made her 26. It made her 26 in Endgame or in Age of Ultron. But see, when them being kids, it makes sense that they could be coerced into Hydra against their will, because so as a noob,
I don't think so.
So let's say this: as a noob, you don't get the prequel comics. There are prequel comics that come out for the movies. In that, it shows that the Hydra agent had a SHIELD logo on, because remember, at that time, Hydra was still inside SHIELD, unknowing to anybody. So they're wearing a SHIELD badge and saying, "Hey, we can help your revolution against Tony Stark. Come join us." And then they experimented on him. They didn't know it was Hydra because they were kids. They weren't smart enough to figure out. But now it's a 26-year-old woman. She should pick up on the clues that, wait a minute, this isn't right. So I can see a 16-year-old getting conned into something they don't know what it is. I can't see a 26-year-old. But anyways, there's a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to Tony Stark. And Tony Stark is one of the biggest villains of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Love him. Love the character. He's a bad guy, though. He wasn't a good guy.
It just makes me wonder, with all of everything that I've rewatched, what is actually variant title worthy? It's like, why not this then? If this, then why not this? This doesn't make any sense. And I I like being a noob, but at the same time, it's like I wish I had yours and Jason's brain to like maybe appease myself a little bit because it makes my brain hurt trying to figure all this out.
Yeah, it can be a lot. Trust me, I've spent many a TikToks going over different theories and debunking certain things and explaining other things, and
Right.
it's crazy. But here's the other thing to the variant thing, because in Loki episode 1, when he's brought to the desk and they give Casey the Tesseract, he's like, "What is this?" And he's just gonna call it a blue box. The guy next to him is a scroll. Scrolls are shapeshifters.
Oh.
How many variants can you cause by pretending to be somebody else?
Right.
A la Nick Fury in Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the real Nick Fury's off in space, while Talos pretends to be Nick Fury. Now, was that part of the plan? Or is that a variance? Like, so that stuff, like, as the series progresses and we dive into the multiverse and we dive into this whole ramifications of everything that's happened before, we're going to start to see more and more, well, maybe, you know, okay, so this was a variant, but they fixed it. And so, back and forth, vice versa.
Right. It would be, and they have really done a really good job in writing, because there's a lot of things that can just happen all of a sudden. Like Nick Fury could be meeting with Iron Man and saying, okay, well, now I gotta go deal with a situation, and I forgot, where is it where Thor takes place?
Asgard?
He didn't say Asgard though. He said
New Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, where the hammer fell, New Mexico, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta deal with a situation in New Mexico. Like, he could have been someone else too then. You know?
We don't know how long Talos has been Nick Fury. We have no idea.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that actually will have to be addressed at some point.
Yeah.
And Marvel knows it. They've teased it. So they know, they know they have to address it.
Of course they do.
But another thing that's great about this is that, again, as a noob, you haven't watched everything. So you didn't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
You didn't watch Agent Carter. You didn't watch... Did you watch any of the Netflix Marvel series, like Daredevil or Punisher or anything like that?
No.
Yeah, see, all that stuff. But what they did is when they showed Loki killing Phil Coulson in that flashback...
Yeah.
They put the nail in the coffin that those shows are no longer canon. And now there's a big debate in the fandom, mostly with toxic fans. Well, how come, you know, I love that show, it should be canon. Fans dictate canon. First off, fans do not dictate canon. The creators of the product dictate canon. Second, just because it's not canon doesn't mean you can't love it still. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still on Disney+. Agent Carter is still on Disney+. Even though it's not part of the timeline, you can still enjoy it. And they're opening up the huge multiverse now. So it could be an alternate universe that occasionally bleeds into the MCU and then bleeds back out. That's what the multiverse offers us. There's so many things that can happen now with the multiverse coming. You can bring in, like, supposedly Charlie Cox, the guy who played Daredevil in the Netflix series, has filmed scenes for Spider-Man No Way Home. As his character. Well, his character, not as Daredevil, but as his alter ego, Matt Murdock, the lawyer. What is Spider-Man going to need after the end of Far From Home? When he gets outed and called a murderer. He needs a lawyer.
Right.
So now you've tied in Matt Murdock, because everybody loves Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock. Like, he did such a great job with the character. So now Marvel can keep the character, but the show is still not canon. You don't have to have the show now because of the multiverse. So it's great. It's also like we got Blade coming up in it's like 4 or 5 years away, a new Blade movie.
I love Blade.
Well, the actor playing him is Mahershala Ali. He was in Luke Cage on Netflix as the villain Cottonmouth, but was killed. But now you can have the actor play another role because that show isn't canon. So even if you bring in Luke Cage, he's not going to look at him and go, Blade, you look like somebody I know. You don't have to do that because it's a different universe. So it's like Marvel And what
It's
some
kind of like trying to watch Harry Potter do a different role. Although he's great, though.
Oh yeah, like Swiss Army Man is such a weird
Oh my
out
God, I
there
love
movie,
him.
but that's a great movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Guns Akimbo, is that what
oh
it is?
my God, what a movie that is!
Great
It's
movie.
just crazy. It's technically a
Yeah.
comic book movie.
Really awesome.
Yeah, it's
Well,
based on a
good.
comic
We're
book.
right on topic again then.
Yeah, Guns Akimbo's great. It's just one of
Yeah.
those. It's what Hardcore Henry should have been. Remember that first person
Oh,
movie that we
yeah.
walked out of?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
let's tell that story real quick. We made the mistake of going to see Hardcore Henry, which is a first-person action film, and we bought the D-Box movement seats.
Yeah.
It was just too much. And our technology is still not there because it was too shaky. I ended up watching the film at home a couple years later. It's not good.
No.
Like, when you're running, your body, you don't see things like this when you're running.
I know.
Your mind knows
It's
to
just-
keep everything stable. But cameras can't do that. So that whatever camera was attached to that guy, every step he took, it was like vomit inducing. We went and watched.
Yeah.
We ended up going and watching Batman versus Superman instead.
We did. We totally walked into the other movie.
We got out of that theater. We walked into the other one, and I mean, it's Batman versus Superman. It has its issues. It's not a great film, but it's fun.
I like that film. I like maybe it's because
I also like the
I'm a
Ultimate version.
noob, but I really liked it.
I liked it too. I do like it. It's just it's not good, but I like it. Like it's not good from the character sense. Like it does a lot of things it shouldn't have been. And like the whole like the Martha. I get it. The Martha scene.
See, that's what I'm thinking. There can be a problem with having too much information. You guys are like so
Right.
bougie now. Like for me, I liked it.
Like I said, I still like it. I watch it. Now I watched the Ultimate version, which is Zack Snyder's cut with 30 extra minutes of footage, and it makes it so much better. But like I think Man of Steel is a phenomenal Superman film.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand.
So what were we talking about before? We're going like way off topic. Before we were talking about Harry Potter.
We were talking about variants.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to that.
Let's go back to that.
We'll save the rest for another time.
Yeah. Well, like we said in the first podcast, Jason and I can go off on the whole DC versus Marvel comparison. That'll be you want to hear some heated debate, which we'll both be on the same side. We're just both heated about it.
Yeah,
but it has nothing to do with the characters, it has nothing to do with the actors. It's all the studio. But anyways, so variants. This opens up a whole new realm of issues, but not in a bad way. Not issues in a bad way, because now you can like, if a fan wants to bitch about a plot hole, Marvel can be kind of dicks about it. And be like, oh well, that's a variant. We erased it. No big deal. You know, they can literally just wipe their, if there's ever an issue, they can now correct it. So if they have a legitimate plot hole, which there are a couple, if they have a legitimate plot hole, they now have more avenues to fix it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's really broad.
Yeah, they brought time travel in Endgame. So that's one way. You now have the Time Variance Authority and variants and that whole issue. And now we're moving into the multiverse. So there's 3 big ways to correct any issues or answer any questions that were
I think like at the same time though, the writers are so good that they would be able to do it in a way that's going to be, for lack of a better word, like profitable in the future.
No,
that's going to pull into other stories later on if they do it correctly. So I feel like I'm like, as a noob, I'm getting into it at a really good time, but also I feel really blessed to have like you and Jason to ask questions. You guys are really, really knowledgeable. There's not a lot of people out there that have been following comic books for this long, and you guys, it's been since you guys were kids. So, I mean, you guys know so much about it. So,
well, to be honest, I have found, especially in more recent memory, because back when Jason and I started reading comic books, being nerdy was not acceptable.
Right.
Now it's chic to be nerdy. So a lot of the people that have the knowledge like I do are starting to come to the forefront because they're more accepted. But the problem is that there's also, again, there's that vocal minority of toxic people, the gatekeepers, the gaslighters. There's that, like, there are some comic book shops I would tell you never to walk into, ever. because the second you walk in, you're a woman, and they're just going to belittle you the whole time. It just.
Then let me know. Give me their names right now so I can walk in there tomorrow.
Well, I can I can find out the shop. I literally had there's a
Please.
cosplayer on TikTok. She's actually in the Tampa area. She went to a comic book store and they just belittled her the whole time. Now,
that's a challenge to me. I would think it would be fun.
She didn't want to give up the name, and I understood why. On her public TikTok, but if I message her, I'm sure she'll let me know which one. But I just told her to go to Emerald City Comics.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good ones too, but also, like, you only have one life to live, and nobody can tell you what to think or what to feel, or you can. Just because you're a noob at something doesn't mean that
you're not a fan. It doesn't mean you're not a fan.
Right.
And I harp that so much on my TikToks. Just because you're not as knowledgeable as I am, or somebody who has been in the business for 50 years, that doesn't make you any less than a fan than me.
Right.
That doesn't. If you've watched one Marvel movie and you love that movie, you're a fan. Even if you've watched none of the other ones. If you just watched Iron Man 1 and you're like, you know what, I love this movie. I watch it all the time. Then you're a fan.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. There's no need to gatekeep. There's no need to gaslight. There's no need to be toxic.
No.
I'm a very big advocate for anti-toxic fans. That's one of my biggest things on my platforms. Is I'm very much against toxic fans, and it's in every part. Like there's Star Wars, in Star Trek, in Marvel, in DC, in every realm of fandom. Video games, there's so many toxic fans, and it's especially hard on women. And I feel so bad because they just get sexualized on top of being, gatekeeped, and it's just it's. But I actually funny story about the comic book store though. I actually came up with something I might do maybe next year. I might do a road trip and hit the best comic book shops in each state and vlog it for the podcast.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Why not? It's like when we did the road trip and hit up all the donut stores from
Voodoo Donuts.
Voodoo Donuts. Yeah. Oh, yum. So good.
Best donuts in the world.
Well, let's wrap this up, Vince. What are your final thoughts for tonight?
Well, I hope that we were able to help some people who had some questions. And if you have any questions that we didn't get to, leave them in the comments. And we'll be able to answer them. It might be something that either Denise hadn't thought of yet. It might be a question she has, or it might just be something we didn't get a chance to talk to tonight.
We're gonna do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna do
sure
this.
I'll have more questions as I rewatch movies.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, you've got WandaVision. You're gonna have a lot of questions.
Oh God.
But you're gonna enjoy it. I promise you. Get past the first 2 episodes, and you're gonna enjoy it.
Okay.
And actually, I love the second episode, but still, you'll enjoy it. I promise. So what about you? Any final thoughts on your end as a noob?
You know what? Like, my final thought would be speaking to haters. So I'm just gonna quote one of my favorite comedians, Cat Williams. If you have one hater, your job is to make sure you have about 15 by the end of the year. And if you have nobody else to hate on, feel free to hate on me. Much love.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for checking out. This has been Questions from a Noob. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
God bless.